without further ado, man, it's great to welcome you. And I'm super excited. So David Featherwalker, my soul brother from way back, both been on this spiritual path for quite some time. And while it's definitely our trajectories have overlapped and winded away and overlapped again and weaved, and we've come to this point now where it seems like we've both become quite practiced and versed in our own specific philosophies and capacities and skill sets. And when we come together in conversation, it makes for some very, very interesting and notable talks, ideas, and questions that come up out of it. So, that's why I was really super excited. And I'd seen that you had also been doing some interviewing as well. So I wanted to plug your show, man, because I was super, super intrigued by, watching you engage, and your guest was really cool. When talking about manifestation and the different practices that he did, and coming from this space of like complete atheism, but total open mind. I thought that was just rife with, connecting points to dive in deeper. And you guys definitely explored some cool stuff. So yeah, guys, definitely check out Drunk on Spirit there. We'll put a link to your channel, man, in the description.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cool. So, well, I don't have anything prepared necessarily, but we're going to just get the ball rolling with some conversations, and I'll just let you take it away from here.
Rock on. All right. Fair enough. All right. Well, I am, as always, Lord Captain David T. Featherwalker, broadcasting from my intergalactic spaceship, the Lion's Roar. And today, I have my friend, my confidant, one of my mentors, and most certainly one of my spiritual soul brethren. He is Koharlan. He is so many things and more. He's a teacher of different forms of energy mastery, different forms of self-mastery, and different forms of inner masculine development. I highly recommend going to any one of his, if you're a man, going into any one of his retreats. The only issue being there is that he has such potent spirituality that sometimes it's difficult to allow my spirit to come through because of the ever-present potent moment of feeling his expression and truth. And this is not a bad thing. It's not a negative thing. It's more of a time to sit down and shut up and listen kind of thing. But today I am speaking, and thus I will power through it and work to allow my own spirit to come up and match his potency on today's episode of Drunk on Spirit.
Oh man, well thank you so much for that introduction. I really appreciate that, man. And it's been a long time coming. It feels really great to be able to step into power and humbly, obviously, and with respect, and with the real desire to serve, and to be able to see that reflected in the people that I've worked with is just the greatest reward that I could have. So
absolutely, rock on. Good shit. Well, I do have specific questions I'd like to start everything with. Not that I don't have a strong verse in what I feel your perspective on spirituality is, but the whole idea of Drunk on Spirit is to get drunk on the concepts that flow through from people's own understanding of their own reality, their understanding of other people's perceptions of what life is, because I want to grow in my perception of what is real, what is truth, what is reality. And so that's the basis of this question. And my hope is that by talking to people such as yourself, I will be able to help other people further their own development of spirituality, because if I can talk to lots of different people about different types of beliefs, then maybe each person can find a truth that works for them that'll help them find a way to feel empowered in their reality and allow them to come forth into their own deepest aspects. Would be the way I'd put it at this time, I guess.
Well, something else before you even ask me the question, though, because that you had spoken about on the previous podcast that I recall, was that you also wanted to open up the conversation for the purpose of expanding your experience, right? The depth of your enriching your life experience, and that also encouraging others to do the same thing. Because when we enrich our life experience and become, in contact with concepts that we hadn't considered before, let's say, it might have taken us 10 years to come up with this idea on our own, or maybe longer, who knows? But then we interrelate with somebody with an open mind, and this concept comes through that they came up with somehow, or that came through them because it was time for you to hear it, and that expands what was possible for us by orders of magnitude. When we interrelate with people, we're enriching our experience, and the more experience we have, the more the more we're able to restructure our brain. For one, the more chemicals, different configurations we can learn to make to have different experiences. So the more experiences we have, it's like the more potential experiences we have in our Rolodex, so to speak, that we can recall, recreate. So inner states, things like empowerment, right, as you mentioned, or a sense of deep peace and calm. And if these are states that we can access through various practices, then it seems very worthy of an endeavor to undertake the development of these skills, and speaking to other people, connecting and thinking in different ways, opening ourselves up to new experiences is one of the biggest ways that we can expose ourselves to new ideas that can change our lives.
Absolutely. Very fucking well said. It's interesting. I've been doing much more of my own energy work recently, and experimenting with activators to allow for more natural release of DMT in my pineal gland, in combination with Wim Hof breathing exercises that are meant to stimulate that in the first place. And I'm talking about microdoses, very small amounts, just to stimulate the neural pathway with the physical connection of doing it, to kind of jumpstart the practice a little bit faster than I might naturally develop it from just doing the breath work and waiting for the proper moment in alignment to start feeling it naturally. And it was crazy today. I'm only doing this specifically for a few weeks. And today I was doing my Wim Hof completely not without any acrobatics. I only do it every once in a while to kind of like bump it up. And it was just crazy that I felt like able to start really ramping up the intensity of the vibration within inside myself, and a recognition at the same time that it's a focus of the vibration itself with my mind to change the frequency that I'm currently broadcasting to receive a more true aspect of spirit. Because more recently also, I think this was actually a big point that we disagreed on for a while. I'm just jumping right into it here. I was always bigger in the aspect of personal willpower and a personal opinion, and being very absolute in one's mindset to create reality at all, rather than having things channeled purely from spirit. And I went through
I
my
do
own
recall that disagreement there, that dissent.
Yeah. Working with a form of psychic sorcery upon myself in a deep trance state, utilizing activators, where I literally saw a pain that I've been feeling for a long time in my heart, literally physically, and it would stop me from doing stuff from time to time. And I saw it, and I saw this gaping hole that was just like kind of open, and it was that concept. It was that concept that I wasn't sitting at the concept that, yes, sure, your free will is your own free will, but what is it based on? What is it made out of? And I would always, well, obviously it's absolute spirit, because I am made of spirit, yada, yada, thus I have will. And it's like, yes, you do. But what is that made of? Would always be the argument, right? And I was finally able to realize and accept that it is spirit, and that all things do come from spirit fully. And in so doing that, like was able to heal over that hole in my energy body, and then was able to feel it and express it and breathe much more readily through it, allowing for a very deep resonance with the spirits that were working with me during that trance. And it was just a very beautiful thing. Obviously, I'm still working on coming into this knowing. This is very recent for me, like within the past week recent.
Whoa.
Yeah, very new, very new. I've been doing a lot of new stuff, Co. I quit drinking entirely, 100%, 3 months ago, I think now, somewhere along that. And I've been doing a lot more, just focusing on healthy exercise, healthy eating, and getting my Qigong in, all that kind of stuff. And more, and now this new practice of activators plus real work stuff combined, like a shaman of old might do, to try and really train themselves into a high energetic state. And it's crazy. I always felt energy when I did like Wim Hof stuff and felt my body vibrate. But now I'm getting to the point that it's like higher echelons of vibrating, starting to get on the cusp of, I think I may very well be able to activate my Kundalini energy as powerfully as I did this one time long ago when I was drunk and hungover and like cured the hangover from a blast of Kundalini energy through my whole body. And now I'm just like, I think I might actually be getting to the point where I'll be able to do this at will and not even need activators unless I want to use them for a particular purpose, which is very cool. So I'm in a very cool place right now. Now, I was sitting there and doing the meditation today, feeling like the really intense natural DMT release, not full visuals, but feeling it, like really feeling it running and coursing through my body. And that's when you texted. That's when another friend texted, another friend texted. It was like all this other energy that I had been like waiting for, well, not waiting for, but I knew it was going to, whenever it came. But as I was activating it, as I was calling upon the creation principle, as I was feeling that power within me welling up, all of a sudden, ding, 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 things just start manifesting immediately into my experience, like immediate manifestation. Like, well, I guess I'm doing that right there, because there it is. There's, not that you need the proof, but there's the fucking proof, right? For myself anyway.
And the thing is too, anybody can use these principles to start manifesting things in their lives.
Yeah.
But for most of us, at least in my experience, this was true too, I would get frustrated because things wouldn't work fast enough, or I could do certain things, but not to completion, or not these other things that I really wanted to do. They're really important to me. And was feeling these hang-ups and struggles. And then, after a while, you just kind of, you doubt yourself in this area. So you go back to what you know, right? I'll just try harder. I'll just, I'll beat myself up more, or I'll like, try, I'll do more. I'll work harder, and you're in this struggle state and things. And then that takes us completely out of that potential of what we can effortlessly, co-create, bring to life, manifest.
Yeah.
And because it's a limiter. When we're coming from personal will, we only have access to so much energy. It's really when we tap into that infinite source and allow it to flow through us. And we do this by surrendering over, our own will, in a sense. That we still have autonomy. We don't become these robots. It's not like that. But it's just like we become willing to do the harder thing sometimes, or to do the thing that we don't necessarily want to do in that moment, but we know needs to get done. And it's not so much about doing tasks that we don't like. It's more about facing the things within ourselves and really surrendering and transforming them, and letting go of our ego-driven desires. But we have to see them first. We have to see how willful we're being. We have to see how rigid our approach is, and then see that that's not working for us anymore, and that there's a better way,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a lot of what it is. I think there was, for me, a lot of fear that there would be some kind of like loss of self by surrender. Like you say, robotic kind of thing. And I'm finding less that there's a loss of my personality at all. It's more my personality has been enlivened with its truth.
Yeah.
It's been allowed its truth to flow through it. I don't know how else to say it besides that. And then there still is co-creative energy, because for a long time I've had a connection with spirit. I don't know if I went into this on my last podcast with Justin, but I know I talked to him afterwards at the very least about it, where I was mildly suicidal when I was younger in college. And I remember actually putting like a bathrobe tie around my neck and just to see what it would feel like. Not, I had no intention of doing it, but I wanted to see, and talking to people later, like, well, that's intent. Like that's, even if it's not intent, it's still intent. And I remember One Direction, what song came on? Good Life by One Republic. That's what it was. This could really be a good life.
Uh-huh.
And I felt this light with inside me as if it was shining that song. It wasn't the song playing from the external. There was something growing from that song's expression within me. And at the beginning, it was just that. I don't even remember how long ago this was, but over time, that light has grown into a voice that speaks and guides me through anything I really need. Anytime I have any kind of question on anything I need, I just ask and it explains it to me. It's like step-by-step process, exactly what I need to do to succeed in whatever area I need to succeed in. And always tempered with love, compassion, and trying to be helpful in the aspect as much as it can get me to do so anyway. Because I'm not always in agreement with what it wants. And so that voice has always been there for a long time. And it's not just one voice. It seemingly is a complex of many invisible masters that speak to me when I need them to do so. And sometimes I'll even use different voices and accents and stuff. Like it's actually different, like passed on ascended masters, what it feels like to some degree, and primarily my truest form of myself that has already lived all the versions of my lifetimes coming through to me as high as I can receive the divinity, so to speak. And then the consciousness that still is me gets to still interact and talk with it. And then together we decide solutions and work together on co-creating a world together with all the other beings around us that are also part of it doing the same thing. And it's like that cohesive recognition that we are less egoic identities and more a oneness blossoming into many petals. And being able to accept that makes so much sense to me, because the brain is not like one thought, one thought, one thought. The way the brain works, it has neurons with a bunch of like axons connected to it, right? Dendrites, whatever the hell they're called. Dendrites connect to the main thing, and then the axons come off, which is a dendrite to another thing, and they send signals. And basically one of them, the way it gets to fire, if there's enough yeses coming through. So there has to be an average of a certain amount of people yelling, yeah, for that to actually come through and fire too. Well, if that's how your brain's constantly sending signals, why would we argue we're one egoic identity rather than a multitude of cosmic infinite intelligence focusing itself into different ways? I think that's more true to say. And then you can extrapolate that into all of the cosmos, every single grain of sand and every single great being far beyond whatever we could imagine as well, also being that light.
It's funny because it reminds me of this book I'm reading. Actually, it's right here, called The Biology of Belief. Bruce Lipton wrote this, and he's a biologist, cellular biologist specifically. And what he noticed, in his research, and other people have performed this research and things, but he was always of that same idea. Once he had this breakthrough at some point when he was teaching, he started to realize that everyone looks at cells as like, they have this brain, the nucleus, right? And if we remove the nucleus, like that's the brain, and the cell, probably will stop functioning. But they actually did these tests and they removed the nucleus, and the cell still functions in every single way, except it just can't make copies of itself because it doesn't have that DNA in the nucleus to do it. And so what it showed was that DNA isn't the source of intelligence and creation as they previously thought, but it's in co-creation with the environment, the stimulus, and in the stimulus inside our bodies, our thoughts and our feelings, our beliefs, and all the subconscious programming that we carry. Plus we have the external stimulus of the world affecting us all the time as well. And that's what really shapes our genes. It tells what genes to turn off, what and on, and also how to express. Every single one, there's 20,000 genes maybe, or something like that. And each one can express 200 different traits. We got a lot of different possible configurations there, like basically infinite configurations. And it's not determined by our parents. That's the old model of us already being at the effect and having to start to, try to make up ground from whatever card we're dealt. But when we awaken to consciousness, our own autonomous self, we could say, we start to realize very directly and very powerfully and very repeatably, demonstrably, that it is us who have the greatest influence in our environment and therefore expression. And that's on a physical level with our, genetic code, but it's also on a creative level, with energy and with spirit and just whatever it is that we feel called to do, to create in order to serve and to have an impact in this world.
So do you feel that there is an inherent necessity of, I wouldn't say service. I think service is a natural thing that comes out of our recognition of that all around us is basically reflections of ourselves. And so by helping others, we're literally helping ourselves in a way, and helping the greater whole as well. It's not trying to put that as a selfish perspective, but as a holistic perspective. But well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do you feel that there is particular callings that you have to follow, or is the calling coming out of your own natural inclinations over time of what seems beneficial to you, or is that really just splitting hairs and it's the same thing?
Maybe so. I'll tell you, I'll describe it in my own experience, and we'll
Mm-hmm.
see if maybe that gives a clearer answer, right? Because the reason I'm really glad you asked this question too, because I haven't had a chance to talk about this much, especially not publicly at all, since I really started to understand the power that comes through when we become committed to serve. It opens us up to tremendous power when we actually let go and surrender our own ego-driven drives and needs and wants and desires. It's not that we can't have what we want. It's just we're not going to have it at the cost of competition, of someone else having less than. And service can come in so many different ways. Like, people are called to serve in all sorts of different ways. It could be you are called to serve by creating a computer program or many programs, or maybe you're an investor and you're supposed to serve people by helping them create financial freedom and things. Or maybe we're, like a spiritual advisor or mentor, and you're helping people make changes within themselves that are going to have a positive impact on their lives. Or maybe you're just reaching out to people who have less than, to try and raise their standards so that they can have enough and improve the lives of others. But we can do those actions from different places, and they're going to have tremendously different results. That's about the energy that we're coming from. And you touched about that on the beginning of this call, which was about the frequency. It's so important that we have the correct signature that we're vibrating, because I can work in a soup kitchen all day long and do it because I feel guilty, and I feel like I shouldn't have so much while other people suffer, and so I should do something to make up for what I have. And I know a lot of people have done this and probably are doing it, and it's just a totally different spirit than someone who has so much and they have such a great life and they feel like, I really enjoy seeing a smile on someone else's face. Like, I don't want for anything, I can have anything more that I want, but really what brings me the most joy is helping someone in this way or that way, whatever way it is. And when we feel like we have enough and we are enough and we can have what we want, and we're demonstrating that more and more, the focus starts to shift, because we're not going to create from lack anymore. And we stopped creating from lack long ago, or we wouldn't have really gotten here. Not with a healthy mind and a healthy spirit. If we create abundance, I should say wealth or financial security and things, whatever we create, if we come from lack, we have to use force, we have to use control, we have to compete for limited resources. And all of this means there's a winner and a loser. And that means if I have to, I know salespeople who would tell complete bold-faced lies just to get the sale, because they wanted to be successful. But if that comes at the cost of defaming a company, getting fired, feeling like garbage inside, because you can't do those things and not feel bad, although you may suppress it and not know that you're carrying a heavy burden. Just like, we carry these burdens a lot, and then sometimes we're not aware of them for many years. And then we realize, oh, I'm really locked up in this area. And then when we heal that and let it go, it's like, oh, wow, I've been carrying that for as long as I can remember. I didn't even realize it felt like me.
Yeah. Or even, I have a big believe in reincarnation. You are too, right? I don't know. Like, you are, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the eternality of life. And so I think that can certainly take many forms, including reincarnation.
okay. I'm trying to be very direct with my questions about this when I ask these things. It's not that I don't have a decent view of where you come from, but I want to ask questions so that the viewers are more full on their understanding of what we're talking about. So I guess I am learning over time. I should be asking more questions rather than stating things for people. So would you elaborate on how you see reincarnation or the substrate upon which reality is, be that Shiva or whatever term for expansive consciousness you would use, what would be your personal way that you would describe, in the most simplistic version, what the basis of reality is?
Ooh, okay. That's a good question, man. So real quick before I answer that, let me just go back and add one thing to make sure I fully answered that previous question about surrendering our own personal will for the greater service. And this seems like a sacrifice when we haven't experienced it. But in my experience, it wasn't a sacrifice. It was discovering what I really wanted that I didn't know I wanted yet. I had to let go of what I thought I wanted in order for this to start to come to light. And now I see this as much greater than anything I would have gotten or tried to create coming from that limited sense. So that's one thing. What you can produce is much greater. The power is orders of magnitude greater. The other thing, though, is that it's a natural evolution that comes from fullness and satisfaction. When we have a feeling like I'm safe, my needs are met, I'm good. Sure, my friend was just asking about this the other day. He's like, I don't understand why all these millionaires aren't off just in the Caribbean, just enjoying their lives, And I was like, well, the thing is, and not everyone is different. We can't lump all millionaires that are like this, but we can certainly talk about people in general. Anyway.
Technical difficulties, and we're back. Let's go.
Okay. So, just to finish the thread, basically my experience with it, is that as I create more and more for myself, then, and yeah, there could come a point in time, let's say for somebody who, let's say they just got extraordinarily successful. Maybe they go off for a while and they just start to live the life that they want. Eventually, it seems like everyone that goes through that experience finds out that it's ultimately kind of hollow. Like they could just keep living for themselves, but eventually there's no juice to that. And it's like, there has to be something more than just this hedonistic, no matter how much I get, I have to get more in order to get some kind of feels from it now, and so the ante's always getting raised and we never feel like we're satisfied. Mm-hmm. But when we change that, and it's an inside job. It doesn't come from getting more wealth. It doesn't come from getting more power or a better relationship necessarily. It's when we start to change inside and we feel like, again, like I'm safe, I have enough, I'm confident enough in myself that I believe I can accomplish my goals. And then we start to actually be able to do that. Then at a certain point, we just realize, and some people come to this sooner than others, but it's really great when we have that sense of fullness and satisfaction to then say, oh, how can I give back? What could I do to help others to have this? To have this, because there's more than enough for everyone to have this feeling of fullness, the satisfaction, my basic needs met, and the capacity to move towards my goals and dreams and create a vision for my life. And that's possible for all of us, I believe.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think so. I definitely coming into my whole tiny home adventure and getting to this point where I have enough just to kind of like live and do my own thing. It's, I don't really have to work right now or anything. It's, um, it gets feeling was just, I don't know. It just feels very blech. Just it's just like you're describing. Like it's not fulfilling. It's not fulfilling unless you're doing something that feels naturally, intrinsically fulfilling. Something that uh, gives life to the light within your soul. It's and naturally, generally comes from helping others and stuff like that. And in what way it's going to be fulfilling, what type of help you do, or whatever type you work you do is it's why you can't I guess it's why they call it a calling more because it's what you feel naturally inspired to do. It can't be something that someone tells you to do. I think that's part of where my big free will argument always came in. And some very angsty kind of like, fuck you, man. I'm going to do what I want. Like, because
Yes.
everyone's always telling you got to live your life a certain way, right? And now it's, and also being raised, Christian. I was raised a nice form of Christian Methodist where they're all like super friendly and nice and sweet and loves everybody, gay friendly church, all that kind of shit, right? But like it didn't change the fact that there was this like feeling of an authority figure looking down on you, like you better not fuck up, otherwise you're gonna get a smiting. We're not serious, but maybe you might get smoten if you're just not doing your thing. Make sure you do it right, all right? And the reality of it much more was I'm coming to find that it's like uh where do you feel drawn into? What is naturally opening up of the flower of your heart, for a more poetic expression of it? It's like what brings forth that in you is going to be so, while it might be similar, it's still going to be unique compared to anyone else. And so that's why you can be guided towards the path, but you can never have it told to you directly. So many people are like, I want this exact, give me the exact answer, the exact solution. I'll go fucking do it, man. Just give me the exact solution. I'll go do it. And, well, it comes down to it. A lot of it's like sitting down with yourself, finding what your fucking answer is, get your shit straight, and then see what falls out of that. And I don't know, it's not about having more. It's about having a natural expression within inside yourself that wants to be expressed, and finding a way that that can be beneficial to both you and the reality at large, the infinite being, and all other beings within it, as much you can allow within your capacity. It's this space that's non-finite. It's an infinite space. That's why in Thai medicine, there's the teaching of promihuihan si. They say if you're going to go heal someone, as long as promihuihan si is translated, that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you fix their injury. It doesn't matter if this, that, or the other. It's if you're able to help them have a deeper connection with the four divine states of mind: love, joy, compassion, and equanimity. For those who are not sure what equanimity is, that's like poetically put would be the still pond even in a raging hurricane. The ability to be present and still. It's an infinite state. You can always be more still because life is vibration. Everything is a form of vibrating energy, which means you can always practice being more present, more still. So there's certain states that are infinite. And those are the only ones that can fill up an infinite space, which is also our heart. And thus, promihuihan si, when it is translated to another person, given to another person, then that is all that mattered in the healing. And I think that drives into home. What we're talking about here is something that gives a state of fulfillment. And the only states that can fulfill you are the infinite states, which are love, joy, compassion, and equanimity. They self-multiply. They self-amplify. When you give them to others, they come back Like these kinds of states
Yes,
are
those kind of states, exactly,
yeah.
man. Yeah, totally. I call them, well, the antithesis to those, right? When we get stuck energetically in things
Mm,
is when we're vibrating in those states of like grief, sadness, depression, lonely, um, I'm not good enough, I can't do it, the world's not fair, this shouldn't have never happened. And any of those things could be true, verifiable, proven, in a sense, but it's also like, where do you place your attention? What are you amplifying in your awareness? Because very certainly the way that we look at the world absolutely influences the world that we see. There's a direct relationship between observer and observed. And if we are looking through this lens of lack, of not enough, of I can't, of I'm a victim, of I want this, but life is too hard, or, any of that kind of stuff, we're shrinking our capacity and short-circuiting our energy flow. So I call them short-circuit emotions. And these more transcendent states, like you're talking about, the love, the bliss, the joy, compassion, even states like fulfillment, confidence, trust, and empowerment, clarity. These states also, they have no downside to them. And so when most of us go through life and for a while, for a good portion of the time, many of us maybe, never realize what's really important to us and what we really want. We have stuff that we think we want, but then we maybe think, well, but I want that, but I can't have it, so I'm not going to really go after it. So I'll settle for this, and maybe I can have this. And then there are those who really certainly know what they want, and they go after it with ferocity, but then maybe they still don't succeed. And so they can feel jaded and give up, let go of that dream, and then even let go of the dream that they could even do anything great because of that failure. But these principles, these qualities, when we start to awaken them more and more, right? The compassion, the love, the trust, the surrender, then what opens up is the possibility to really understand, for clarity to dawn on what is really important for us, what would really bring us the most meaning and joy and fulfillment and satisfaction. And when we're coming from lack, when we're coming from fear, when we're coming from a small separate self who has to make his way in the world, we're not caring about more love, more joy necessarily. We want to get the stuff that we feel like we need just to be okay. So we're not even interested in service. We're not even interested in develop these higher transcendental states. They might sound nice, but we still got work to do. We got bills to pay. This thing needs to be taken care of. And also we keep focusing on and repeating the obstacles that we see and seeing them as inhibitors to taking empowered action, to creating change, and to overcoming them. So we're operating within this matrix of extraordinary limitation. And this is how most of us operate for so long. I know I was there for a long time. And even the more we wake up, the more we wake up. And as you said, it's one of those qualities that we can become more and more present, ever clearer. But it starts with really recognizing that we got to stop spinning the hamster wheel. We're never going to get what we want, what we really want, by going about it the way that we've been going. We can't just do more of what wasn't working to begin with.
That's very true. That's very, very true. Are you frozen?
No,
No,
I had
okay.
me too. You're like entranced, man. I was like, yeah, me too, brother.
No, that's absolutely true. I mean, when we sit in any mindset that, I mean, even thinking about them for a moment, not in a beneficial way of development, but feeling as if something really is holding me back rather than knowing that I can overcome something. We identify with it. And the moment we identify with it, rather than something we're looking at, it becomes our thought. I remember my earliest meditations when I was first starting off, I was still able to get into these really clear spaces where I was like, not my thoughts. And I was like, everything would fall away, but the thoughts were still there. It just, I wasn't them anymore. They would exist. They were the things that would arise and disappear. But the moment I was like, oh, let's look at this just for a moment. I just want to touch it. And then it was me. I was thinking that thought. All of a sudden, it just like it's like I just got sucked into it. Like, and then I was that thing. I identified with it and I became it instantly. And then I would lose that beautiful state of being able just to be actually passively aware of what was existing before me and make an honest decision about something or a clear decision about something. Then I instantly became it. And then I wasn't able to jump back out as easily. As I'm getting more and more practice, it's easier to see that even that state isn't necessary to be clear, but and there's more. There is divine states of expression where things just flow through you. It's so noticeable when I run. I'll be running and I'll feel like, I'm really pushing through it. And I notice I'm thinking about bullshit that's going to happen later or things that happened before. And when I think about something that's painful or frustrated, I'll like misstep, I'll almost twist my ankle and shit. Like all this stuff will happen. But when I'm in the zone, and it was actually just the other day when I was thinking about how I need to clean up the running path at my friend's house that I'm staying at. And when I was thinking today, after my run, I'm going to get out here. I'm going to clean out all these thorns. So not only for me, it'll be easier to run, but also for when they come to pick blackberries later, it'll be nice and clear and really easy for them to get through here. And when I was sitting there, like, I'm going to do this for us, not for me, but for us, and really feeling that inspired action, I was able to run faster immediately. I felt my body come alive, and then spirit comes through and starts talking to me like, see, this is the fuel we're talking about. When you're burning on this fuel, everything just works better. You instantly feel more empowered. You instantly feel like you have more energy. You instantly feel like you can do shit all day. And it's because I was coming from a place of inspired action to helpful action. And it wasn't not for me too. It was also for me, but it was also for them equally. And it was a beautiful synergistic action. And
it's not
I
just
immediately felt empowered.
It's yes, and it's for both.
Yeah.
Like that's what I was kind of alluding to. I heard this phrase in a book I read recently, which it was just really profound. It's called Becoming. And in it they say, the authors say, talking about how they awoke to the realization of what they always wanted that they never knew that they wanted. And so that's what I'm talking about. It's like this type of level. When we stop coming, it's like, I think I need this to be happy. I think I need this to be happy. I think I need this to be okay. I think I need this to feel safe. So I'm going to go and try and get all this stuff and keep it together because that's what I need to feel safe, secure, happy, all those basic needs that they talk about, in Maslow's hierarchy, we could say, or just, whatever, our basic needs met. And even if we have those basic needs met, most people don't still feel safe because they feel threatened by things outside of their control, relationships, power struggles, and those types of things. So even though their needs may be met and they may have enough to, take care of themselves for some time, it's not enough to stabilize themselves into this state of feeling like they're really at home, can relax and be themselves wherever they are, whoever's there.
Yeah.
So when we start to develop this, because it's the thing is we don't get that from the outside. Again, it's not an outside in, it's an inside out job. We're never going to get that state by getting the shit that we thought we needed to get in order to get that state. It doesn't work that way. It starts from getting that state. We need to figure out, we need to start to understand and train ourselves through meditation and contemplation and practices like that. However, we connect to, but it's some type of empowerment, meditative practice, and we have to be able to get into the subconscious. If we're not in the subconscious, we're not doing the real work. It doesn't matter how much we change our thought on this level, because there's too much power and potency behind the subconscious to create real change that's going to last, unless we make some real change there. So that's why the meditation is necessary, because it gets us into that place. And when we start to be able to get there and start to learn the terrain, right? It's very different from thinking mind. And what you were alluding to, I think, was, in my experience, is like, I would have these very clear states, but then when it lasts, I would get sucked back into thought, just as you were saying. Sometimes it'd be weeks before I could get that clarity again, but before I even thought to look for it sometimes, because I'm so identified in thought, that I forgot what was really important. And then what we do in certain forms of meditation, and you talk about this, and going to other dimensions. And so we learn to unhook from this just one level of frequency in the thinking mind, we could say. And yeah, there can be space there, but there's also this tremendous momentum that's there. And even if we maintain space, it's going to kick up again. And eventually, if we're not really incredibly present, sustained, which is nearly impossible to be at this level of mind, we're going to get sucked back in eventually. We're going to start reacting to those thoughts that are being self-generated. Just because this is the level of thinking mind. It's where thinking happens. And we can sustain thought or suppress, I could say, or suspend thought is more accurate. Suspend thought. It's like we're holding things in place. Or, as you said, you kind of slip back long enough to see the thoughts, to witness, and then you recognize, okay, there's something else here that's not thought. Oh, okay, yeah, this is more essential. This is more fundamental. But from this point, it becomes very possible to move our center of awareness to a different dimension of mind, different level of mind, one that's much more stable, one that doesn't have constant thoughts going in and out of it to distract us, but one where we can really settle inside, tune into our inner body, to our subtle body, and limitless dimensions, as you were pointing out, also become available to us. But we can't get there from thinking mind. They don't exist at this level of mind. They might be real close, like seeing through the third eye, opening that up. It's like so close to the level of where thinking mind resides, but it's not thinking mind. So it's a subtle shift we need to make, and we can open up that space. And now it's like, oh, energy's flowing through another meridian that was closed before. Yeah, I still have access to thought, but now this is also happening and functioning, and it's generating more, greater awareness and expansion and energy.
Yeah, no, I can, as you describe that, it's a feeling of right where my pineal gland is, a space that expands separate from the thinking mind, that feels, rather than thinks, that's not a good description of it. I can't quite describe it. It's a very subtle shift, but as you were talking about it, I felt like this releasing. Oh, maybe that's part of where I need work with opening my third eye, because I'm getting, not my third eye, but my true expression of it, I guess. Whatever you want to put it to. But it's interesting, because recently Spirit has been describing to me how these deep states that I get when I'm like in other dimensions, that literally all of it is already me, and it already is all of these other places, and it resides within all of it. It's already there. It's not separate from it. And so when I'm doing the deep breathing and stuff and feeling my body and starting to contract the energy up my spine and stuff, I'm getting that kind of stuff and the physical body vibrating. And now I'm starting to look into that I need to allow, I guess, rather than demand the body to shift its vibration. But as you were describing that, I felt a subtle shift in the place where I imagine my brain is and think about my brain. And now I'm like feeling in that space rather than thinking in that space. They're like both there right now, which is, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
interesting. That's cool
That
stuff.
sounds, that sounds very similar to what I've been experiencing. And, I don't know if you've been seeing my journey at all, but I've been working with some plant medicines quite a bit this year. One in particular is called Sananga. It's eye drops that are very intense, and it doesn't produce a psychotropic hallucinatory effect, really. It is a little bit energizing, but you splash cold water in your face, that's energizing too. Lots of ways to energize yourself. Extreme pain can energize you, shock and things. So, but it's an intense feeling that you feel, and there's a reaction that happens behind the eyes. Your eyes resist it; they recoil, and so an intense squinting happens, but it's deeper than we normally squint. In my experience, it's like behind the eyes. And what I tuned into through working with this medicine is I started to be able to relax through that reaction. Like the everything in your mind and body is just going, like this, but you relax, you learn to relax through it. And then I started to feel the energy would be flowing through that space. And then what's starting to dawn on me is that space has always been squinting. It was just, there was, a tiny, tiny little pinprick of flow of energy of the third eye space flowing through there.
Yeah.
But it's been so jammed shut, and the reaction to this medicine caused me to feel how jammed shut that was and work at opening and relaxing it. And now it's opened up this ability to, it's like, it's as if this inner eye opens from behind my eyes and opens backwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so instead of opening this way, it opens behind the eyes backwards, and then what it opens to is a tunnel of energy that's connected to everything in my whole being, and so I can see within the entire, universe now of the universe of my own being. I clearly see, but it's not a seeing with vision necessarily. It's more this felt way of moving through this tunnel where vision flows, or vision can flow. And it's vision that's prior to sight. It's like pure vision, if that makes sense.
As someone who's done a lot of massage, I know what you're talking about. There's a pure sense of vision that's almost felt rather than touched. And there's understanding encapsulated in it, but it's not with images. It's with, for lack of a better term, really complex emotional expression. I guess that's how I would describe it to someone that doesn't understand what we're talking about, that hasn't been in this space, because it's, how do you describe color to someone who's blind? It's very difficult, right? So if their eyes are not open in this way, I would describe it as a sensation of super complex emotion that's so complex it can talk to you. And so you're seeing things throughout your body through a felt expression of the infinite space of what it is. I guess that's how I would describe it. Does that resonate with you, or would you say a little differently than that?
Yeah, it does. That definitely resonates.
And this podcast, for at least for me, is a lot about trying to bring it down to a level that people that haven't experienced the states, how to describe the states to them, so they can understand when they're opening up to them.
I would say it like this. This is one way of looking at it, which is pretty interesting, and it's kind of like scientifically backed too, which people like. That helps the mind accept it, So we're not going to accept something that the critical thinker is like, nah, that's bullshit, But then we put some science in there, some data, and people are like, well, wait a second, let me give this a second thought. Mm-hmm. And so the way the eyes work is we're not actually seeing outwardly. And that's the way we experience it, most of us, for most of our lives. It's like I'm looking out. I am looking out. I'm sending my sight energy sort of out, we could say, or my ability to see is just this outward movement that is able to go to a thing and know it in that way through sight, right? But it's not the way that it works. And when we understand how it works, it helps us to experience it more, like directly. When we see that, oh, actually what's happening is light is reflecting off of the surfaces of things, and it's being directed inside our eye. And then it goes actually into the back of the eye where it's received, and it's converted into an electrical signal, electromagnetic frequencies. And then these signals are sent to the back of the brain. And at first they're upside down, is the way our eyes work, but they're flipped inside the processing unit back here in the occipital lobe, I believe it's called. And then from there, it's projected into our minds, into our conscious awareness. And we see it as a projection in our minds that was received through light entering in our eyes. So that's how it really works. So knowing that, what I can do is we can ask people, see if you can, now that you understand that that's what's really happened, see if you can feel that light coming in. See if you can kind of feel the receiving of what's seeing is happening. Because the difference is most of us are looking. We're looking out because we're these small selves. We need to survive. There's threats. There's things we want. And so we're searching. And this is going out. It's sending our attention outwards, even though we're not really sending a sight out, as I said, but that's how it is at our experience. And we shrink our focus and we become beady-eyed like this and seeking what we feel like we need to get to be okay. It really puts us in the state of lookingness, of seeking energy. And we can't manifest at all from this state. It's so contracted. We just keep trying to get and manipulate and control. And we don't want anyone to know that we're doing this. So we're hiding it all as best we can. So a lot of BS getting in the way of our true power. And we shed all that and stop the games. What happens as a process too of recognizing this. But yeah, the light is coming in. We start to say, oh, okay, well, wait, I'm receiving. Well, wait a minute. What's that like? What's it like to just receive sight? And is there a feeling to it? And see if you can feel what the eyes feel like as they receive what's being seen. So that could be a pointer. It helps me to certainly tune into that feeling, because I recognized it when I started seeing behind myself, as I said. It's that same quality. It's just moving inwards now, whereas before it was only directed outwards.
So do you have images that you see at all, though? You're saying the seeing, though, isn't the quality of it is not visual. It's energetic based in nature. And so you're saying by receiving this feeling of the light coming in and practicing feeling that, one can practice feeling the sensation of energetic receiving of data. And then that is what you're saying is what you're feeling from the other direction is like an energetic impression of sight.
So what was the first part of the question again?
The quality of this backwards opening into the universe of your body that you see from this space that was arising within your mind. That's like from the squinting, from the stuff that you were working with, allowed you to see that there was this closed off portal that you worked to open up, and it opened up being able to see back through your being. And we were describing that
there's imagery.
wasn't
there's imagery. You're asking if there's imagery. Yeah. Right. So all right. So in my experience, it's like, we can all see imagery. We see it very, very clearly in dreams. A lot of people, myself included, sometimes in meditation and things, or if we're trying to visualize, or however we work with visualization, or just, the imagination is a way. We all do that as children, pretty much. Everyone imagines, and that's one way of visualizing. And some of us can imagine very, very clearly, and artists are often able to do this with such clarity that they can, bring that into their work. So it's a skill that we can develop, and that's like a level of mind that, in my experience, it's kind of like it's related to that level of thinking mind, but it's not necessarily thought. It's like thought in that same space can become a vision, and maybe it moves a little bit to a slightly higher realm in the subtle body. Maybe it's centered slightly higher, and so that capacity is not necessarily third eye opening. people think, and I used to think anyways, for sure, I used to think that my third eye opens, I'll be able to see in all dimensions and like have these amazing visions that like similar to things I've experienced on hallucinogens. And that may or may not be the case, because it's dependent on the way your configuration, your frequency is running at that point. How open is it? How open is it necessary? But the movement of energy through that space, the movement of consciousness through that space and chi, that is open. And so it will allow me, for instance, to see, feel, know, to see, feel, know. It's a good like word. If we could combine, if we made a word that include all those things.
See, feel, know.
I'm able to see, feel, know, let's say inside my
It
soul.
sows the truth within you. It sows the truth within you.
Well, it definitely shows the truth. And so what I'm experiencing, let's say like I can feel that there's something down, in my lower torso, in my back, like my very, very lower back and in my hindquarters. That's a little kinked right now, right? I've noticed it for a few minutes, and I would want to work with this normally just very quickly and just untangle that knot, because we got lots of energetic knots, and sometimes new ones pop up and stuff. So then to me, in my experience, the energy is so pronounced that it's more real to me than the physical. So I feel the energy much more real than I feel the physical realm, my body included. Mm-hmm. So if I have a knot, I feel it so pronounced. It's like, I don't want this knot to be here if it doesn't have to be. And I know generally how to untangle them now pretty effectively. Well, this is one way, is I can look back inside to where it is, see it from the inside. And I'll describe what I'm kind of see, feeling, knowing with this process. Is that, well, it's starting to move and shift and dissolve just by looking in this way. Looking not to seek it, not trying to find it, but this open way of traveling through the energetic meridians with the vision capacity. So all right, so I'm getting closer. It's like the closer I get, sometimes it amps up the resistance. It's like there's something in there that doesn't want to be seen. That's not really the case, but I'm trying to anthropomorphize it because that's how it feels. As I get closer, it generates more resistance. It's like, oh no, I need to protect this. We don't want to see this. This can't be seen. This is how our traumas are operating within us. They can operate under the surface for so many years, is because whenever we get close to them, we try to avoid them. We do whatever it takes not to feel those triggers. And we get so good at it that we forget they're even there, and we're just operating on trigger mode. And this is a very, it's like being in a prison that we're not even aware we're in a prison. So anyway, so through working with this kind of stuff, I've discovered certain things that oftentimes the closer I get, the more amplified the resistance gets. And it's like this natural deterrent almost to not go there. But I've learned to go there, to be very, very willing and happy to go there with great acceptance for whatever I find, because I know that in there is gold. Like whatever's in there, even if it's great pain and trauma, hurt, loss, fear, I can alchemize that. Once I'm aware of it, the power of awareness alone is enough to alchemize it. Once I'm looking at it from presence, from acceptance, from love, some capacity like that, it will transform it and alchemize it. But if I'm not willing to look at it, it's not going to change. It's just going to be controlling me like a puppet master that I don't even see.
I think that's where it gets into also the whip of karma is a thing too. When there are multiple paths to salvation, and one might be right thinking, which is how we might put what you're doing in this box. You're working with the energy directly, you're sitting with it, you're going through it, you're understanding it, and you're seeing its representation in a and you're feeling it and you're opening it and you're transmuting it through a new layer of perception upon it, which allows it to break apart because you're now the three basic forces, the active force, the receptive force, and the reconciling force. So you are looking upon this old energy, but you're looking at it, and now they merge because the expression, the new one, and the old remembrance of it become this new expression, which now becomes the new you, which is sitting here. And as you do that over and over again, you can transmute this energy into something new. And I think this would be the way of right thinking. But I think there's also the whip of karma, which means effectively just all the residual patterning that we've created within inside of ourselves. If we don't take the time to transmute it, it will manifest externally in lessons that we can then learn from, which will continue to amplify, not necessarily amplify in intensity, but likelihood will trigger you more strongly and thus keep triggering you, making the trigger worse and worse until you get the fuck over it or die trying.
It's a self-correcting system. It's a self-correcting system. But the only problem with that is there's no way you can have enough self-correcting in 100 years of a life.
Oh, yeah, not at all.
Which leads us into the next question.
What would be techniques that you would use to amplify your ability to transmute
well, wait. We're not there yet.
Okay.
I got to go back to the one I didn't answer yet because we were asking about reincarnation. So that's what I was alluding to.
Well, I'm going to redo the question one more time just so everyone recalls it. Whoever's watching. So the question is, from the most simplistic place that you can put it, what is the fundamental basis of reality? What gives rise to existence itself?
I love this question, my friend. Thank you. So without too much ado, I'll just answer it straight out. It's awareness. And
end of podcast. No.
I want to answer it first because oftentimes I give long-winded answers and then sometimes I get off on a tangent and I can forget the original question and stuff. So, and sometimes I feel like, I don't want to bait people. There's the answer. Now let's unpack what that means. Let's talk about what that means to me in my definition of it and things and how I experience it. So first of all, let me just get a quick drink.
Yeah, sure. Do 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 do.
Right. Perfect. There's a reason why they use that song. It's just time to do whatever you need to do real quick.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's see. All right. See, it happened already.
Awareness being the fundamental basis of reality.
I'll make you a deal.
All right.
I want to trade you and let's just pretend for the sake of this exchange that I am a supreme being with all power and omnipotence.
Sure.
And I can grant that power to you, my friend. And matter of fact, I can grant you anything that you want, anything that you could possibly conceive of, things that don't exist in this dimension, whatever it possibly is, I'm going to give it to you. And I'm only going to ask you for one thing in return. Do you know what it is?
What is it?
Well, the usual story goes is I want your soul, right? But I'll tell you what, I'm not even going to ask you for your soul. Bet? I'm only going to ask you for one thing. It's your awareness. Is it a deal, my friend?
Well, no, because then there would be no thing for me to perceive through which, as much I would not exist, and therefore anything you give me I would not have.
Oh, damn it. You must have read the fine print.
Truth. I like that. I like the way you put that. That's really good. Oh my. I had not heard it in that way before. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. That puts it in really good perspective.
Thanks,
Hmm.
man. Yeah, it's like without that, right? Without that basic principle, it's overlooked. Most of the way that people think about this awareness is like it's a tool, it's a function of mind. I am aware of the screen. And so this um, autonomous entity, we don't know what it is exactly right now, but we're just calling it I have certain capacities and capabilities. I can pick things up, with this body and such. I can use my focusing ability to see things in the world that I want or that are threats and navigate that way. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so this is the way most people function. And the words are used similarly because if I tell you, well, focus on the screen, you look at the screen, your attention goes to the screen. If I say, become aware of the screen, it's like, well, okay, same thing, no difference. But if I say, become aware of the substrate of your experience as pure awareness. In other words, what is it about this that you can't extract and still have an experience? Can you forget yourself? Sure, we do it all the time. When we're lost in activity and things that we love or extreme danger or whatever, we're not thinking about ourselves. We lose ourselves entirely. We're totally in the moment.
Hmm.
So we could lose that. We can lose anything physical or we could gain it. Um, we can lose relationships. They can change, all that stuff. But if we were to ever lose our awareness, that's it. Game over. Because without that awareness, as you said, you can't perceive anything. There's nothing to perceive. There's no one to perceive. In fact, you don't exist because the only way you experience what you are is through the capacity of awareness.
Hmm.
And again, it's just so overlooked. And even when people start to see it, they're like, okay, yeah, I'm aware. So what? Now what? But I still want to get my stuff. I still got to pay my bills and do my things. And I'm safe, loved, and happy and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But it goes deeper than that. When we start to really look and spend time examining it directly, which is only through meditation and contemplation does this come about. I shouldn't say that because sometimes it'll come about spontaneously, but if we don't know what it is we're looking at, it's very unlikely that it's going to stick. So people will access these states sometimes in flow state if they're an athlete or something or a high performer. But then the rest of their life, they might not be able to access that state at all. And so, they're very limited in their experience. The rest of the time, they may be operating in a survival mode, more or less, And it's only for that little period of time, those couple hours a week or a month or whatever, that they truly get to experience this freedom. But that's one thing to entice them to say, well, you don't have to only have this when you're doing that activity. You can actually have this all the time, or you can have it a lot more. And there's a tremendous benefits that come along with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people all the time that the reason I meditate, it's like training the ability to be in the zone, but for everything. It's a natural way to increase capacity just to be in that flow state at all times, no matter what's going on. You're training the actual capacity of the flow state rather than an activity to get into the flow state.
Exactly. So you're moving to cause instead of trying to produce an effect by doing something in the physical world. We're moving to cause. We're saying, okay, I want to generate this effect. How do I generate it internally?
Mm-hmm.
And the only way we can do that is by becoming masters of ourselves, by developing the skill. And it all starts with the fundamental principle of recognizing this awareness and then starting to build a relationship with it more and more, and then start to see what it has to show us, what it has to offer us. It's like our greatest teacher as well. Everything that we can possibly learn has to come through awareness as well. We don't look at it that way. We don't see it that way. If we did, we would never stop being grateful for this gift that we've been given, that is always with us, that we can't lose. So this is the fundamental reality, as we say, and I think we've just explained that, at least in a way that yeah, most people can wrap their mind around that to some degree. I think it's like, okay, let's say we had this magical power where we could just vanish things, you know? So if I vanish your body, right? Oh God, wait, I'm gonna start there. Put you back. Let me vanish the world, okay? I'll vanish the world first. So you're still there with a body.
Oh no.
Now let's take away and vanish your body. I'm gonna vanish mine too. I'm gone. Bodies are gone. Okay. What's still here? We still got thoughts. We're still talking. There's still sounds and stuff. Let's vanish all that. Well, people are like, well, there would be nothing. I'd be dead. No. I didn't say you're dead. I just said there's no thought. We vanished all thinking, and we vanished all experiential reality, all external experiential reality. It's gone. There's like a black void. Yes, there is that, but there's not nothing because you're still here. I didn't vanish you. Just your body, your thoughts, all the things that you think about, and everything that you perceive normally is gone. But you're still here. It's almost as if it's almost as if like you're woken up in deep sleep. You're not dreaming. The brain isn't producing any content, but somehow you've woken and realized without even words, because that would be in thought, without words, you just see the nothingness that's infinite and know that you are still here. That's awareness. And the more we tune into it and pay attention to it, the more our experience of it grows. And then we start to open up to certain capacities because it is also the source of everything. So it's the source of all healing. And its natural capacity is to heal. It does it effortlessly. So when we, people hear these words all the time, and this is what we're literally doing. When we bring awareness to, or when we invite these feelings into awareness, is a little more accurate. We're opening, we're allowing, we're surrendering inside. And the we that we normally think that we are, which is always struggling and grasping, loosens. And then lets go. And as that false self, right, is dissolved, at least temporarily, and there's this expansion, and awareness just has a chance to do its work. It's just seeing and knowing and feeling what's here now without the filter of interpretation and without any trying to control, get rid of, fix, fight with, bury, suppress, or change in any way. Its natural capacity is to heal. It's just harmonize. It's a harmonizing force. Just like the yin and yang energies are polarized, and this is that harmonizing force that we talk about that brings them together and creates this unity.
When I always think of the yin and yang, I see it as not necessarily separate forces, but rather a description or a way to encapsulate something that's not a finite thing and thus encapsulatable without breaking into things to look at it. And I always see it as the awareness and the womb in which that awareness is birthed. A way to see it would be like the thoughts themselves and the onlooker of the thoughts. All things are the one thing, but to describe it, to break it up in pieces, the first pieces we break it up into is self and other. To exist at all, I think there is some form of external, is how we would call it, because there has to be some kind of loss of infinite knowing to be manifest in a way that allows for growth. You have to basically lose your infinite nature to be a manifested being, because by the very nature of having a presence, you have something you observe. Even if it is that presence itself, you are the looker upon that which you're experiencing. And then that's the yin and yang to me.
Yeah, well, that brings it to a whole different conversation, but I get what you're saying. And there's different ways people look at that, the yin and yang versus polarity also, versus the Shiva Shakti model, which is more transcendent, which is more like, okay, it's consciousness is one phase of the reality, and another phase is when it moves into form or energy and creates and becomes manifest. Then it's Shakti in that phase, and yet the two are one, and there's energy in consciousness, and there's consciousness in energy. So that's the way of looking at the great cosmological view. It's the same in the Tao. You know, they look at the Wu Qi as the primordial essential consciousness, and then as it splits, you know, it becomes two, yin and yang, and from there all creation happens. But what I was actually alluding to, I maybe shouldn't have used those terms, but what's clear is that we have this tug of war going on inside of us, with conflict, with pushing and pulling, with resisting things that are there that we don't want. And it's creating this imbalance in the force, this conflict. It creates, it binds us up. And whether we're aware of it or not, it's going on. And when we bring awareness, non-judgmental, acceptance, allowing, just let's see. It's almost like I guide people oftentimes in processes where I invite them to become like a compassionate journalist in a war zone. And they're going into this war zone, which is their inner being. And they just want to get the scoop. Like they just want to know the truth. They don't have a side they're on, because they know everyone is suffering here. Whenever there's war, there's suffering on every side. So they're just compassionate, and they want to get the scoop so that people will understand what's going on, what's causing this conflict, so that we can bring awareness to it and maybe heal. And like if we examine ourselves inside with that type of a mindset, we're getting much, much closer to this pure awareness, because that's what it's like. It has this power to harmonize, to dissolve and transform conflict within ourselves, to heal trauma. It just can do it. It doesn't need our help to do it, but we need to be willing to allow it to do its job. And that's where the surrender really comes in. So again, we got to come back to these principles. It's not easy to do this stuff. It takes time to build these practices, to build the understanding of how to develop these qualities. And then the more we develop them, then it starts to get a lot more fun and a lot easier. And then again, it becomes so fun. What if you could do anything that you wanted in the world? I ask people this sometimes, if you could just have any power, let's say, anything you wanted to do, you could just do it. And then, or even we could use the analogy of a video game. Let's say you beat the game on every single level so many times. Most people don't play it anymore. But suppose it was a virtual reality game that you could enter, fully immersive. you know? And you could do the miraculous in this game. And you could entertain yourself and others by doing this all the time. You basically are defying the laws that are set forth within the game. You're doing things that nobody else can do. It's unbelievable. And you're doing it for joy. You're not just doing it to show off, because the only way you can develop that skill is you have to transcend those ego-driven desires to a very, very great degree before these capacities start to open up. It's like safety valves. So, but let's just say, again, we're exploring this as a possibility. Let's say you could do this, and then, you might start to create so many things for yourself, so many experiences, and you've done the miraculous so many times. It starts to be like old hat, just like anything is going to get old after a while. But you see everyone else in this game, and they're suffering, and they're banging their heads against the wall. And it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do?
Teach them how to do it too, so they can see their fullness, which will only help you master your own abilities even further, because to have to explain it and teach someone how to do it makes you really get in the nitty gritty of all of it that it is. You learn your own capacity even deeper through the transmission of giving it to others as well. And then you get to see the joy and expressions that they create that you wouldn't have ever been able to create, because it's their perspective, which is different. And then thus they get to create these beautiful miracles that you get to witness. You're like, I would have ever done it that way. That's really cool. Like, whoa. And then you get to witness that. Yeah. And I think there's even higher levels of that too. At a certain capacity level, one would get to a point where they're effectively like creating whole universes from the beginning and helping and watching things create. And I feel like that's what our higher selves are when we commune with them. It's effectively beings that have ascended to such a high degree. That's basically what they're doing with this reality. And we're receiving it from their infinite nature, which obviously comes from the divine beyond them, right? Which it's turtle is all the way down, my boy. It's just infinite in degree, however which way you put it. But nonetheless, yeah, I think that's what it is. And that, absolutely, I agree.
Well, I want to get to the other question. So just to repeat about the reincarnation, that was one that we didn't really touch on. So and that one I can be kind of brief on, because, we could talk about any of these topics till we're blue in the face for sure and never run out of things to say. But this one, it's kind of, it's simple enough to go through, if we understand that what we do, what we create, what we put out in the world has a ripple effect, and also has, it's like a boomerang effect. It returns to us. And the only way that this makes sense, that we can really rectify it, is if we look at expanding beyond one single lifetime. That's just one way of starting to open the door. So wait a minute. Okay, I do kind of believe, and I have seen and experienced, and most people experience, at least to some degree, and the wiser we get, the more we start experiencing it, that if you want good, you got to put out good. You don't create an amazing life by being a shit person. So we intuitively know this. We start, we see it reflected in our experience. And so we start to do that. But then we see people who are like, but why does this person, he's such an a-hole and he gets to be rich, or, how come these people get this and these people are suffering so terribly? It's not fair. And if we consider multiple lifetimes, then it starts to make sense as a possibility. Oh, so, all right, well, okay. That does at least solve it as a potential. So maybe I've done some things previously that influenced who I became and influenced things before my birth. And maybe it is what they say, that these things are like latent seeds. They call them samskaras in Sanskrit, and there's the seeds of my karma. And they may not get expressed in this lifetime, but they will get expressed in some lifetime. And so that's the concept. And there's a lot of data that shows that there is an argument for this that people can look at. There's a book called Surviving Death. I think it was even a series that has instances where people, there, for one instance was there was a boy, I think from the time he was like 2-3 years old, he started speaking about planes. He started looking at planes. He was crazy about planes, World War II planes. And, his dad's like, his parents are both like, this is really strange, because after a while, he starts naming the parts of the planes. He starts telling them how it works. At first, it just sounds like crazy imagination, but then it starts making more sense. So wait a minute, how does this kid possibly know this? And this is like before the internet. So he wasn't a 2-year-old genius searching this stuff on the internet. Eventually, the kid convinces his dad to take him to the World War II museum, where he goes and he starts to identify everything on the plane. Talks about, this is where we shot this. This is where we loaded the ammunition, Dad, blah, blah, blah. Is giving him the whole 9 yards. He was there, man. He was doing it. So somehow he was tapped into a consciousness that existed and went through that experience, because he couldn't have produced that with his own gray matter, He didn't have those experiences to draw on to have that information. There's way too many facts that came up that pointed to this is a possibility. The story goes on that, and I won't take up too much time because people will probably want to look at this, but the father ends up taking this kid at some point because he remembers names of the guys that were in his unit. And his father starts looking up these names, and he finds that one of the guys is still alive.
Oh,
he
shit.
gets to reunite the two, man. Yeah, dude.
That's awesome. I'm going to read this. Is a book?
I think it was an excerpt in this book, or it might have been in a separate story I read, but the book is called Surviving Death. It talks about these types of things. And if someone Googles basically, World War II pilot reincarnated as a young boy, that's probably going to lead them down the rabbit hole where they'll find it.
Very cool.
So that's one instance. Now, in my own experience, I will tell you that since my spiritual awakening, and energy really started to become online for me as a part of my experience, it stopped being like, see if you can feel the energy moving between your fingers. It's like, no, I feel that energy. Oh my God, what is going on? I started to feel and experience these things I had only, read about, that this powerful awakening energy had the capacity to blast through our meridian system, our subtle body, and find these samskaras, these seeds of karma, and burn them up so that they wouldn't be expressed. So we wouldn't have to go through that pain. We wouldn't have to do the things that were going to cause us to experience the recourse of our prior, actions that caused harm to others, because somehow that could be worked out in a way that was more easier for us, gentler, compassionate. Somehow this grace comes through and says, yeah, you know what? You're going to skid your chin on that concrete stair, and it's going to hurt like freaking hell, and you're going to be limping around for a couple weeks, but you're not going to get your knee bashed in like you did to that guy with that log in that previous lifetime when you were, when you were in battle all the time, or when you were, when you had to fight him because you tried to steal his ox or whatever, something happened, a fight ensued, you did that, and now you have to experience that karma. Maybe it can come back in a way where you're not going to be lame. So that's one example. And I experience these things as, it's like you feel like there's this pain, there's this knot, or there's this trauma, there's this hurt inside, or, this tension a lot of times, just this extreme tension. And most of the time we ignore it and we don't even notice it's there. And then sometimes we feel it more and more. Oh, that's pain. I don't know what that is. And energetically, it could be a physical symptom. We don't know, but energetically, that's where the root is. And this inner pain, this grief, this sorrow, right? And things like that. It's like so if we see it as like a seed of karma, let's say, that's going to be expressed and produce this, traumatizing experience. The awareness energy can go to it. The awakening power of it will start to open that knot and transform that and heal it. And then now it can get expressed in some other kind of way. And so we can actually work to accelerate our evolution of spirit, our evolution of consciousness through this earth plane by awakening more and by allowing this awareness to flow through us, to do its work, surrendering to it more and more, recognizing it, developing a relationship with it, appreciating it, and meditating with it. And it's a real power. It's as we said at the beginning, it's the ultimate power. It's the primordial, most essential, fundamental power. And limitless possibilities open up the more we tap into it.
Very true. Very true. I feel like that leads us into the final question is then, what practices do you feel are best to deepen one's expression of their connection with awareness?
I actually have a program that I've developed that takes people through this process of awakening these capacities and developing them more and more. And it's kind of like a step-by-step where we go to the foundation first and really get rooted there. And slowly but surely we work through these levels and start to evoke these qualities of compassion, of fullness, of fulfillment, of satisfaction, of feeling safe, feeling at home, feeling like I belong here. I struggled with this stuff for so long. All of it I've struggled with at various times in various ways. And the reason is because it's a human thing. We all go through this stuff in different ways. And some of us are built different from the start because we have a different karmic past. We might have already solved this issue in a past lifetime, so it doesn't come up for us. Some people are born with this, they got this, a lot of children have it. That usually gets trained out of us, this exuberant, like gregarious personality. But not everyone is like that. Some people have it developed to a much higher degree. In any case, we start where we're at, but we have to face, overcome, and move through these basic core issues. And this is what started to be recognized, is that instead of trying to put out fires and get over hurdles, that if I could solve the issue at its core, then I wouldn't have those fires to put out all the time, So it's good to learn how to put out fires when there's fires going on. And it's also as important, it's more important. Once you get the fires put out, it's more important to know how they got started in the first place. First thing, you got to put the fire out. There's fires out, sure. And sometimes things are smoldering, and we might not know where that smoke is coming from. So we can't put that fire out because we don't even know where the smoke is coming from yet. Building our awareness, building ourselves through these practices, developing these capacities, this opens up what we can see, what we can know, and what we can change and transform. Because one thing is for sure, if we're not aware of something, we are powerless to change it. So it's about developing these powers. And we work at the level of developing a sense of belonging and overcoming that fear that many of us feel just out in public, social anxiety, the fears that drive a lot of people are just working a job that they don't even like, that's stressing them out, that's making their lives miserable that's causing them to waste this precious gift. But they can't see how to get out of it because they're so afraid that if they do something different, that everything could come falling down. And that might be like, the case. They might be really in that situation. So the most powerful way to help them, though, is to start to develop the inner strength, because, I can't go pay your bills. I can't go and individually help all these different people solve their problems and help them put out their fires. But what I can do is I can help teach them principles that will develop these capacities within them, that will change who they are and what they have access to and what they know they are capable of. When I move from fear to possibility, that's a huge leap. If I move even from fear to connection, it's a huge leap. It's a quantum leap. And if I'm at a party, here's an example. I struggled with social anxiety for a long time. I go to a party, and if I don't know anybody there, and no one's come up and introduced themselves to me, I'm having I could be having a much better time. I'm starting to feel anxious and wishing that I knew what to say, or wishing I knew somebody there, or thinking, how can I get out of this situation? Maybe I should just go. If I make a connection, that changes the whole game for me. If somebody introduces themselves to me, let's say, and they're friendly, and now we start talking to a few more people, my focus has totally shifted from my social anxiety. Now I'm connected. My experience has totally changed, and it's different. But the thing is, if I wait for that person to come and introduce themselves to me, I'm at the mercy of the world. I'm at effect again. I want to be at cause. So what I need to learn to do is, how do I get into a state where I feel connection? How do I let go of that fear? How do I get out of that state of surviving, of needing to survive, so that I can access a greater potential of what's possible? Because again, if I'm looking through the lens of fear and survival, I'll only see these limited options. I'm just seeing, how can I get the next meal? How can I get, this person to do what I want, or whatever. We're not seeing, how can I really enrich my life? And we might want to know those things, but we're so busy trying to put out fires and deal with the survival aspect and the basic needs and those lower level aspects of things, and being okay and having the sense that things are okay, that we don't dedicate any time to it. We can't, because we're in that fight or flight system of our stress response. The magic happens when we get into the deeper levels of mind. So I would encourage people to practice things like Qigong. This is a great practice. It's energy work that helps to develop more energy in the body, and it helps tap us into these energies within the body. It helps develop our awareness. So it's a very, very powerful practice. Yoga is a good practice also, but I really like Qigong as well as yoga. I use them in combination, but if I just had to pick one, I'd be hard pressed. So I recommend that. And a lot of people don't know about it. It's becoming more and more well known now, but everyone knows about yoga, So that's one thing they can do for sure. Another thing that they can do is, there are many, many forms of meditation. I can recommend a good meditation teacher is Locke Kelly. I happily recommend him. He talks about effortless mindfulness, which is, I alluded to earlier in the conversation, getting out and unstuck and unhooked from this level of thinking mind, so that we can move awareness to other locations, you could say, within consciousness, so that we have access to other dimensions of experience or levels of mind. So any kind of meditation practice, you got to do that. There's no avoiding it. There's no shortcuts to meditation. And the great thing is, the more we practice it, the more eventually it will become a habit. Eventually it will become something that we can't live without, because we love it so much. And it's fun, and we get to really start to design and create the future that we want, and tap into. It's infinite. I don't know what you can tap into that I haven't tapped into yet. You're going to tap into things that I haven't tapped into before me. I'm going to tap into these other things that you haven't tapped into. And we get together and have these conversations, and our energies start to synergize. And then before you know it, I can do the things that you were talking about somehow is almost as if by magic. It's like mirror neurons. And this is called lineage transmission or energy activation. And it's a very real thing. So hang out with people who are into this stuff. Hang out with people who are vibing at a higher frequency. That's a really, really important thing that we cannot stress enough. If you're spending time in groups where there's so much toxicity, negativity, putting people down, competition gone rampant, toxic, this is not a place that's conducive to changing your life and transforming it in this way, in this way that's incredibly powerful. You're wasting your time. And a lot of times it's painful because we have to let these friends go. We have to let these old connections go and these old habits and patterns of being. And there's a time period of kind of refining yourself that we have to go through if that's part of your experience. And who am I without all this stuff that I used to do, and without all these people that used to think of me this way and reflect these qualities back from me, because that's what they expect from me. They expect me to behave in these ways. What happens when I stop hanging out with them so much and I start to really contemplate, who am I? And this is where the work begins. This is where the work starts, and it is an infinite journey, it seems, that is ever unfolding with greater wonder. It's not free of challenges. It's not always going to be easy, but we get to the point where the challenges excite us because we know there are opportunities, and we have the skill. We feel like we have the skill to handle, pretty much anything. And if something comes up and we can't handle it, like, we're going to develop that skill, and that there might be a period of pain and struggle that we go through, but then afterwards it's like, that's another tool in our bag, and we're good. And it's just this ever more splendorous unfolding of consciousness in creation.
Well, that's beautiful, man. I dig it. I think this is probably a really good place to break off. I think that's a great ending point. Is there anything else? Before we go, actually, is there anywhere people can, what's the easiest way to contact you if someone's interested in your program or one of your retreats?
Right now I'm allowing people to schedule appointments by just going to my calendar and doing a free consultation if they want to find out more about my program, The Power of Possibility, and see if it's a good fit for them, if it could help them to, get past their struggles and obstacles and start to really create the life that they want to live, the future that they want to have, start to live that now. Like, that's what it's really about. If they're interested in that, I encourage you to go to pop1.koharlan.com. That's P-O-P, the number 1.koharlan.com. You can find me in a number of ways on social media too. Reach out if you need to figure out how to get a hold of me, but that's the simplest way. You can actually schedule an appointment on my calendar, and we'll just, we'll talk for like 15 minutes or so and see if it feels right to move forward. I can tell you, a bit about what the program entails, what it offers you, and see if it can help. All right. So that's one way for sure. And stay abreast of upcoming things. We have some offerings coming over the summer too in person. There's a retreat we're doing next month, which is a Tai Chi Qigong retreat. It's going to be heavily focused in that area. And we're also going to be exploring with some local plant medicine to help awaken the energy. And it's going to be a really, really cool time. There's going to be ecstatic dance there. There's going to be various healers working, etc. And we're going to have people for the community for people to practice on as well. So quite excited about that. And then there's my annual men's summer retreat. The Tai Chi retreat is co-ed. Anyone is welcome to come. And I do a men's retreat in August. That's the 25th to the 28th in Central Maine as well. And if you want to learn more about that, you could just go to summer-retreat.koharlan.com. It's KOHARALAN.com. And I look forward to meeting and speaking with any of you out there watching. And I wish you blessings in any case. And thanks for watching. I love to connect with people. Really, it's my favorite thing. One of my favorite things to do right now is just having little short conversations with people and seeing where they're at and just seeing if what I have would really, if they're at a place really, because I feel like, it's going to benefit pretty much anyone because like they're core issues, but people that come to a certain place where they're primed and ready to make this transformation, to make this commitment, to go through this process, because it is a process. It's not easy. It will challenge you. It will definitely change the way that you see and think and feel about yourself and the world that you inhabit. Absolutely, no question. And it's a 12-week process, and it's a financial commitment that you have to make too. So, but when people are ready and they feel called, I love to speak with them. So, yeah, man, that's that. And I want to also, again, as I stated, I've already subscribed to your channel, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of what you have to offer coming up as well, man. It's been a great, great conversation, brother. Fantastic, and I feel so lifted and elevated. And it's been super, super great to catch up with you. It's been a little while, and we'll definitely have to. I want to catch up a little bit, in the next week or two off camera, just to find out a little bit more about the details of what you've been going through and experiencing in your life, man, because I love you, brother.
I love you too, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to come online with me here. I know you do a lot of work online with a lot of people, so I'm very thankful that you took time to do a podcast here today. And as always, it's extremely, extremely expansive conversation. Like I said earlier in the beginning, it's hard to even speak in your presence sometimes because the potency of energy that's just like opening. It's such a beautiful thing. And yeah, man, I'm very thankful and grateful for your presence in my life and your presence here right now and your presence in everyone's life and all that you're able to touch with all that you do.
Aho, my brother. Aho.